All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack a truly wild mystery from the Kalahari Desert while tracing an entire century of sightings across South Africa. We're going to explore some of the most fascinating, bizarre, and rigorously documented aerial phenomena on the African continent, pulling directly from historical archives, intelligence claims, and official reporting networks. It's a journey that literally goes from phantom planes all the way to experimental lasers, so let's get started.
Now we're kicking things off with an incredible claim that surfaced in May of 1989. And this isn't just your standard lights in the sky kind of story. Documents emerged suggesting a literal extraterrestrial shoot-down over the African continent. This narrative became one of the absolute most sensational stories in ufology, detailing a high-stakes military interception that sounds, well, like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But it was presented to researchers as a strictly confidential intelligence leak. So, according to the story provided by sources like James Van Grunnen, a fascinating tactical military sequence unfolded. Step 1 begins with naval and ground radars detecting an object traveling at an impossible 5,746 knots. Just incredible speed. Then, in Step 2, the Valhalla Air Base scrambles 2 Mirage F-1 jets to intercept it. When the object pulls off these impossible maneuvers, we move to Step 3. The jets allegedly fire an experimental laser weapon. The object destabilizes, leading to Step 4, a crash 80 kilometers north of the South African border in the Kalahari Desert of Botswana, leaving behind this massive 12-meter-deep crater with sand and rock literally melted by extreme heat. Now, what's genuinely mind-blowing about this is the sheer level of specific detail claimed about the aftermath of that crash. When a recovery team supposedly arrived at the crater, they recovered a silver disc. Later, at a secret base, a hatch opened and 2 humanoids emerged. And the description is incredibly specific, right? But 1.35 meters tall, smooth grayish-blue skin, no ears, a tiny slit for a mouth, ribbed chests, and 3 webbed claw-like fingers. According to the documents, these beings communicated practically by telepathy, refused food, and were eventually shipped off to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the U.S. under maximum security. Section 1. A century of sightings. Decades of unexplained aerial phenomena. You see, the historical record here is practically packed. Going all the way back to 1914, just before the First World War, thousands of South Africans reported seeing phantom monoplanes at night. People were terrified they were German spy planes, but their origins, landing spots, and pilots never found. Fast forward to 1971 in Fort Beaufort, where farmer Benny Smith and local police actually fired shots at a color-changing fireball hovering over his farm. No way, right? Then, leaping to 1991, families in Bavianspoort, Pretoria, described a massive, hovering triangular craft covered in red and white lights. When you actually look at the data over the decades, there's a fascinating evolution in how these phenomena are described. In the early 20th century up through the 1970s, witnesses were mostly describing things they could relate to their current technology or natural events. Phantom monoplanes, classic metallic discs, glowing fireballs. But as we transition into the 1990s and 2000s, the reports shift dramatically. Suddenly, the skies are filled with massive hovering black triangles, these mysterious orange orbs flying in tight formation, and lights that actively change shape right in front of people's eyes. Then we hit the 1990s, which was a massively intense period for South Africa. There was a nationwide wave of sightings, what they call a UFO flap, in 1995. And we're not just talking about people seeing distant lights anymore. The encounters became highly interactive and physical. A farmer on a rural road near Coligny claimed a spacecraft blocked his path for 3 full minutes. Even more chilling, there were reports from the same flap of an object passing by a truck, causing the engine to completely cut out and instantly stopping digital watches dead in their tracks. And the 90s just kept delivering these incredibly bizarre reports. In 1993, residents in Sasolburg watched a craft shaped exactly like a water droplet that could change color and shape. In 1994, a farmer in Warrenton observed a massive mothership that strangely sounded just like a Volkswagen Beetle engine. And perhaps most incredibly, in 1996, a glowing object was videotaped by a police sergeant in Pretoria, which allegedly sparked a massive chase involving some 200 policemen and a Bo 105 police helicopter. The chopper literally only gave up the chase at 10,000 feet because they were running low on fuel. Section 2. Modern encounters and organizations tracking the skies. 500. Take a second to let that number sink in. That is the staggering number of UFO incidents reported in South Africa in the year 2014 alone. This incredible volume of reports officially puts South Africa on the map as one of the most active UFO sighting locations globally. Naturally, this massive surge in activity directly led to the rise of dedicated research groups and official reporting channels. An entire infrastructure was built just to track these skies. You've got Exopolitics South Africa handling the diplomatic and political implications. We even have the South African National Space Agency, SANSA, setting up a specific UFO reporting center. There is SIGN-UFO tracking the actual data, and incredible historical archives like UFO AfriNews, founded by the late researcher Cynthia Hind.
And these organizations definitely have their hands full, because modern reports are just as dramatic as the historical ones. In 2004, a woman in Durban videotaped a bright, shape-changing light hovering near her home for 3 solid hours. In 2010, residents in Buizen's Pretoria stared at a triangle of bright lights hanging completely motionless in the sky for 2 hours. And in 2016, get this, the captain of a commercial Boeing 737 cargo plane off the coast of Jeffreys Bay reported a glowing green object hurtling right past his cockpit, rising high above the clouds before plummeting straight back toward Earth.
Section 3. Hoaxes and ongoing mysteries, separating fact from fiction.
Okay, let's bring this back down to reality for a second, because we really need to address our thrilling opening story. That cinematic tale of mirage jets, experimental lasers, the Kalahari crash, and the captured web-fingered aliens. Yeah, it was entirely fabricated. Investigators eventually determined that the intelligence documents provided in 1989, as well as a similar claim made in 1995, were elaborate, highly sophisticated hoaxes designed specifically to fool UFO researchers.
And that brilliantly illustrates the core challenge of ufology, beautifully summed up by the South African UFO resource. While some sightings remain unexplained, most can absolutely be attributed to natural causes. The real gritty work of these organizations is aggressively sifting through deliberate hoaxes and everyday misidentifications, whether it's the planet Venus, parachute flares, or classified military aircraft testing, just to find those rare anomalies that genuinely cannot be explained.
Which leaves us with a fascinating final thought for this explainer. If the most famous, highly publicized crashes like the Kalahari incident are proven hoaxes, well, it forces us to look that much closer at the rest of the data. With so many everyday explanations out there, what exactly was stopping truck engines on rural roads? What in the world were 200 policemen chasing through the skies of Pretoria? And what is the true source of the hundreds of unexplained phenomena still being reported over South Africa today? It's a mystery that's constantly evolving, and one that absolutely leaves you wanting to look up at the night sky just a little bit longer. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.